Well, it's quite dismal. For the 3rd of October 2022, just thinking back, it was the 3rd of October when, many years ago, but 3rd of October is the date that Up and Down left the UK for her assignment on convent training overseas. But what I was thinking about it was this, I was mentioning something when I was up at Glen Lyon last week, sitting by the river line. And when I was getting kind of mixed up about the fund transfers and stuff, you know, and the kind of dates and stuff when the money was allocated to Up and Down, I think we'd already established that the amounts was £256,713.63 in total. But one thing I did omit to say was, this has only come up after I've confirmed that with my accountant. I couldn't get hold of him. He'd shot off to Europe over the weekend and stuff, well, for 4 days. And so anyway, I got a hold of him this morning, and he's given me a call back to say, yes, we can confirm there was a separate transaction. It was a banker's draft. And he confirmed the dates in Berlin. So I checked back and under my own filing system and discovered that there was a separate time that I'd been in Europe in order to get some funds for Up and Down. As I remember, she was definitely in Bratislava. So she must have had 2 spells in Bratislava, because I know she was in Hungary and also in Austria for a fairly lengthy period. So I'm thinking this is a separate time, because I can remember the agreement was she was going to fly into Schönfeld airport in the old, East Germany. Although in the period I'm talking about, the Berlin Wall had already come down. So we had agreed to meet, and I said to her, well, why don't I pick you up at the airport with a cab? We can maybe get dropped off in one of those lovely restaurants that I know so well in Karlshorst in east of Germany, east of Berlin, sorry, in Germany. And then what we can do is we can make our way over, perhaps by train. We can get into the main Hauptbahnhof and then walk up to the Bundesbank. So my accountant was saying to me today that when checking paperwork, because I think what happened, I think it's under the Deutsche Bank bought the Bundesbank over, so it's a Deutsche Bundesbank. But at that time it was just the Bundesbank. So I've made something, sifted through some files, made a quick call to the accountant just to confirm again, and the figures that we come up with was £14,000, give or take. A few pounds in there for the what do you call it, for the commission. And so the big question was, I was trying to understand why she needed that £14,000 at that time. And I remember that she bought property. She had some property. I couldn't tell you much more. She was rather secretive on this matter, but she bought property in St. Moritz because I know she's a very keen skier, or she used to be at least. And she bought a property, and I've got no idea, absolutely no idea if she still has that residence in St. Moritz. But as I recall, because it's very, very sketchy now, it's so long ago, the 14,000 was a part of a down payment, as I can remember, or at least it was something to do with this property in St. Moritz. But as I say, the whole thing is absolutely up in the air. Perhaps if I get a chance, if we break the silence and we're maybe back in much more conjovial atmospheres at some point in the future, I'll maybe mention to her, do you still have that property in St. Moritz? And if so, can you recall me giving you £14,000 prior to you obtaining that property? But again, I think that's why she is remaining silent, is because of the substantial funds that have been transferred to her during our times together, which overall I don't mind. But I would have liked to have seen some of it back. But as I said already, much of the funds have now been written off. Not written off by me. I can't write those large sums of money off, and I mean I've taken a hit financially. But what I mean is, as far as the outstanding debt is concerned, it no longer exists. Well, at least not in paper. But so I'm very curious indeed as to this £14,000, because I just couldn't think why that figure had popped up of the £256,713.63, and yet I knew there was something else, but that was established today. So anyway, but when we met in here at Skonfeld, or Skonfeld, as the Germans would say. And then we moved over, as I say, we picked her up. She travelled by train from, so I do beg your pardon, she'd flown in from Bratislava, and just on a short flight. I agreed to meet her there, and we got into a taxi and we got to this lovely restaurant in Karlsruhe, where we had a delightful meal. But she was very fond of sauerkraut, one of her favourites, and so she was as happy as a bunny that day. She was eating loads of sauerkraut and consuming vats of white wine. And I can't recall what she ordered that day, but it certainly would have been a 1960s vintage variety, I'm almost sure. But thereafter we had I think we stood at this trip. It was bitterly cold, I remember that. It was very, very cold. And Berlin can be extremely cold during the winter months. But so we got to on this train, or back and forward with different trains. The train system in Berlin is very complex indeed. My understanding is they have the underground system, but it's in 4 different levels. It's a very complex transport system that they have for that city, and you can get very, very confused as to which train is yours. But anyway, we managed over to central Berlin, and as I say, we walked at our own pace through very grand streets of Berlin until we reached at that time the Bundesbank headquarters, and at the arranged time for the appointment for the transfer. But the transfer was very simple because as the accountant kind of reminded me that there should be a record of the banker's draft, and I said, yes, I've got it. I found it. And that establishes the 14,000, which was obviously transferred into euro. And so she walked off with a considerable amount of money that day. She took the lot in cash. So I remember her arriving with the suitcase, and I said, are you staying? And she says, no, it's to carry the money back to Bratislava with me. I said, oh. So she came well prepared. But I don't know why she needed the cash, but begs the question. It always does with me exactly what she's been doing with all that money. She's very frivolous when it comes to cash. And all her investments have gone down the drain. I really wish she'd listen to me. She does listen to me. She takes my advice, but she's rather stubborn, and she doesn't like the advice that I give her, and therefore she tends to do her own thing and ends up in a bit of a pickle. Let's put it that way. She ends up in a bit of a pickle in regards to her financial matters, and most of her portfolios that she's had seen maturing have never done very well. And often I've said to her, says, why don't you invest here or there? She says, oh, shut up. That's what she normally says, shut up. Sometimes she says it in different languages, but it's normally shut up. And or sometimes she says fuck off. Quite simply, she says fuck off. It's just really, really shocking to hear her speak that way. But she's a smashing person. But as I say, she's a bit of a dimwit when it comes to financial management, and and the fact that she is so aloof when it comes to advice that sometimes it's just better to let her go. So I'm thinking the £256,713.63 that is outstanding, not on paper any longer. There is a further 14,000 that needs to be added to that. But once again, there's it could be 14 million because it's irrelevant. It's just figures in the sky. It's pie in the sky now. They don't exist. And she never talks about it. She's never mentioned it. So I'm very curious as to whether this property in San Moritz has been sold off, or if she's still perhaps going there for some skiing in the winter. I must ask her someday. I do hope we get together for a bit of a chat one day. Yes, I'm sure she misses me.